In the silence of midnight, you find yourself crowded on a dangerously swaying boat. It costs you all your savings, $2,500 to be here, facing an uncertain future without sustenance or space. The European migration crisis, happening mainly in the Middle East and North Africa, is an ongoing problem that continues to worsen every day. The treacherous journeys across the Mediterranean on overcrowded boats have become poignant symbols of the extreme measures people are willing to take in their quest for safety and a better life. This experience is reflected on the stories of over 24,000 documented migrants alone between January and September 2023.
This isn't solely a journey of will, but an act forced by numerous factors such as conflicts, violence, human rights violation, persecution, disasters, and the impact of climate change.
So, what are these voyages specifically? These journeys can span hundreds of miles across open seas. The duration of the journey isn't even the worst part. Rough waters, extreme weather conditions, and the risk of capsizing can all become potential reasons for death. Many migrants lack proper safety equipment or experienced navigators, which only increase the likelihood of accidents and tragedies at sea. The sad truth is that over a third of these asylum seekers never reach the shores, for which they sacrifice their savings and hopes by the hundreds of thousands. This first-hand account is that of Doa, a 19-year-old Syrian refugee and aspiring student, forced by the ravages of war to endure a harrowing existence in exile. She witnessed the drowning of her fiancé before her eyes. It was after 4 days of floating in the sea with dead bodies surrounding her that she get rescued with the 2 babies she saved.
To this day, I cannot understand why our boat was willfully capsized and the children allowed to drown. Not even the children were spared.
What she described wasn't the single case. A greatly heartbreaking picture that captured the public's attention is another known example of such tragedy. Alan Kurdi, more commonly known as the boy on the beach, was only 2 years old when his mother and brother drowned with him on the Turkish shores. This loving family of 4 now leaves behind only Abdullah, who lives in the shadow. In the grand tapestry of suffering, Doa and Abdullah may be considered among the fortunate, having obtained an identity. However, the brutal reality persists. Many refugees, even after reaching the shores they dreamed of, may encounter a cruel refusal of entry. Those fleeing the horrors of their homeland again remain facing an uncertain future. On June 14, 2023, the migrant boat disaster of Messenia turned into a nightmare for many. Over 750 people crammed onto a boat measuring only 30 by 20 meters, roughly the size of 4 buses, sank just 120 kilometers from the Greek coast. Despite rescue attempts, only 140 people survived, and over 100 bodies remain undiscovered to this day. Subsequent investigations revealed that the boat remained motionless for over 7 hours before capsizing. This incident illustrates the precarious position of refugees in the eyes of many countries. This is what death and survival looks like. Despite all the trials they have had to endure to enter, this marks only the beginning of a series of problems. Even after making it to the shore, there are only 2 options that stand before you: to either live a life of hiding in order to not get evicted, or to apply for asylum and get a placement in the refugee camp. The first choice leaves an obvious end to either become homeless or attempt to work with a job below minimum wage without the ability to support yourself. If that wasn't your choice, and instead you decide to apply for refuge, then a refugee camp can become your potential placement. With Europe holding 1/3 of the world's refugees of 7 million and only having 300 available camps, it is without a doubt that some of the conditions are very challenging. A survey conducted by UNHCR states that 68% of the cases respondents stated that they do not feel safe in the camp. 60% stated that they feel forced to share accommodation with people they did not know and or with whom they did not wish to be jointly accommodated. 64% said that the place they lived in was not clean. There are also often reported water shortages and space shortages. On September 8th, several fires erupted in Moria refugee camp on the Greek island of Lesbos, almost entirely burning down Europe's largest camp for displaced people and forcing some 12,000 men, women, and child to evacuate the site with no safe place to stay. The overcrowded camp was effectively an island prison for people seeking security in Europe, many having fled conflict and persecution.
How is this finished? As far as many, all finished.
The fact that this incident occurred days after the first COVID-19 cases were confirmed at the camp comes as no surprise. Barbed wires, brick walls. Does this sound like a camp or a prison to you? These are all set up in Greek's camp on the Greek island of Samos, in the first close-control access center for asylum seekers. Fully funded by the European Union at a cost of 43 million euros, the camp is surrounded by multiple barbed wire fences and equipped with a security system that includes CCTV cameras. This is only a beginning trial for the many more camps to come. NGOs in Samos have witnessed the impact of the first CCAC and are calling on EU and Greek authorities to revise their approach. I really think Samos is kind of a big trial. It's really scary because people in this camp become invisible because you put people in the middle of nowhere. This makes the problem invisible. Without doubt, avoidance and hiding the problem will not be the long-term solution. Now, let's say after enduring all these difficulties, you obtain the citizenship of your dreams as a refugee. What awaits you is racism and discrimination, being called all sorts of names. Research by Europe's Network Against Racism shows that 1 in 4 respondents from a minority group has been the victim of a crime, and at least once in the past year. 47,212 racist crimes were officially recorded in the EU in 2013, and 40 to 60% of the reported racist crimes are not fully investigated by the police. These asylum seekers face microaggression on a daily basis. Refugees and migrants are generally blamed for the social and economic ills of society, including rising crimes and unemployment, because they're scared that they're going to take over their jobs. All of these trends have contributed to the alarming rise in racist violence and xenophobia against refugees, sometimes with complicit involvement or tacit approval of law enforcement agents and usually without effective sanctions against the perpetrators.
We want a Europe free from fear, free from terrorists who shout Allah Akbar.
So, the real question is, what if Doa had the legal opportunity to come and study? What if Abdullah had the legal chance to reunite with family members in Northern Europe? What if they had the work permits? Why isn't there a massive resettlement program for Syrians, Afghans, Venezuelans, and Sudanese, to name a few? Why are we building walls to keep them out instead of developing policies? And of course, the fundamental question, why are we doing so little to stop the wars, persecution, and poverty that drive so many people to flee to Europe? These questions have also been troubling the public and politicians, yet some of the solutions they come up with can even bring more trouble to the refugees. One of the most infamous plans is the Rwanda plan. So what is the Rwanda plan really? It states under a 5-year agreement, some asylum seekers arriving in the UK would be sent to Rwanda to have their claims processed there. If successful, they could be granted refugee status and allowed to stay. If not, they could apply to settle in Rwanda on undergrounds, or seek other asylum in another, safe, third country. Restrictive immigration policies are implemented within a climate of hostility and xenophobia towards refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants. Politicians and the media have shamelessly manipulated xenophobic and racist fears in order to muster short-term political support. Politicians, the media, and the general public have portrayed asylum seekers as bogus and criminals because of the illegal way in which they're forced to enter. There remains hope nonetheless, beginning with the recognition of this matter, just as we are attempting to do with this documentary. Protests, petitions, and a realization of what truly defines these asylum seekers are also first steps we can take to lead them out of their abyss. No midnight will last forever. After the sunset, there will always be a dawn.
If you want to experience some amazing Jamaican night tour, Luminous Lagoon should definitely be added to your plans. It is located in a shallow bay close to Falmouth, a historical town in north coast of Jamaica. Luminous Lagoon attraction site is known as Glistening. Arrive at